Alright, I'm going to do another video on my MOZA settings since there's been a new update with the firmwares on the bases and everything else, as well as the PitHouse. My settings were great prior to the newest update. I've kind of put it off for like the last probably 2 months. I didn't want to update because I heard everyone was having issues and it was weird afterwards and a lot of people downgraded, so I held off. Long story short, I upgraded. And I reloaded my old settings and it drove like crap, and it took me about 3 hours to redial in my settings and tweak some of the new ones to figure out what was going on. With that being said, now they work perfect. Everything's great. It's updated. These will work with the R3, the R5, or the R9, even the 12. The only thing different is a few settings that you might tweak based off the force feedback power. That's the only thing really different between them. So everything else should work. I've had great feedback on the last ones. I've even seen them in other people's videos using the exact ones as their settings, which is fine. I'm glad it's getting out there and it works, but my settings work great, so let's jump straight through it. I'll go through my PitHouse settings, the firmwares I'm on, the in-game content manager settings, and then that's everything you're going to need to get going. So let's start with PitHouse first. So my base, everything else really doesn't matter because my settings aren't specific, but my base is now on version 1.2.7.12, and PitHouse is on 13456. Straight to it for my wheel settings. I'm on max angle of 900 with a soft lock on for the soft limit on softs, and soft limit game force strength is off. Game force intensity still at 80 just like last time. Max torque is at 100. I would do that whether you're on a 9, 12, anything. They're all going to be the same. Just max them out. You're going to dumb it down later inside the game. If you're on a 12, it might be too powerful. Then you can bring it back maybe to like 80%. Whatever pushes out at like 9, and it would be exact to mine in that sense if you brought a 12 down to a 9. Anyways, force feedback reversal off. Hand protection off. Your inertia should be set baseline around 2250. Max wheel speed, that used to be lower. I've brought it up since I've made a few other tweaks, so that's now on 60. It feels a lot better. If your wheel seems like it rotates slow on a 3 or 5, even with a higher force feedback to compensate for the less Newton meters, even though it shouldn't matter, you could bump this up. I wouldn't go over 80, where it seems to be a little unrealistic and super fast. 60 gives me plenty of self-steer, and I can also flick it if I'm just being super aggressive. It's not doing everything for me and super fake. Going to the advanced settings, this was a new one, so force feedback interpolation, I have that at 1. What this does is it makes feedback smoother without losing critical details. So it's kind of like smoothing out the rates you're getting instead of just giving you jolts of it. So I put it on 1. Anything more than that, it seemed like it was dumbing down too much of the feedback. Force feedback center, this is the one that messed up when I loaded it in. This should be grayed out. It says 10, so put it at 10, but then grayed out. The reason it's grayed out is because it's not active, because if you read it, it's being modified by the curve, which is what you're using my custom curve, so that won't be orange. Natural dampening, that's at 7. Natural friction is at 20. I brought this up a little bit. What this gives you the sense of is basically it's going to give you that feeling of power steering or having resistance in your wheel. So it gives you something that feels like it's in your hands. That also keeps it from being very loose when you're not moving or don't have any wheel speed. It's going to play out some other settings. But if you want a heavier feeling wheel, it's not always feedback. The friction is that resistance you're going to get from it, or that lack of power steering you could correlate it to. Natural inertia, I'm set at 175. Spring strength stays at 0. Gear shift, irrelevant, but mine's at 2. Game springs at 100. Game damping, game inertia are both at 50. Game friction is at 100. Speed independent and start point of speed are both at 0. This is what's going to cause your wheel to feel like it has no power steering if you put it anything above this. So basically it's not going to kick in any of your feedback until you get to these higher numbers. So 0, 0, so that way it stays consistent and you feel like you have an actual car in your hands and you're not driving like an RC car. Moving on to the equalizer. These ones are the same as before. If you already have them, then they should say the same. I'll just hit them real quick based off the numbers. So you have 10s at 50, 15s at 60, 25s at 100, 40s at 50, 60s at 100, and 100 is at 0. The curve, which like I said earlier, modifies that force feedback center dead zone compensation. So on my curve, you're going to click this little X or plus sign. You're going to drag that first one that's usually over here down until you see X5, Y3. At 40, you should see 40 and 40. 60, 60, 60. 80 is both 80, and 100 is both 100. Miscellaneous, nothing in here specific. It's whatever you want. There they are. Button mapping, that's on you if you're using a wheel. That's all my wheel settings. Pedals and shifters, up to you. I modified my brake curve like I talked about before because I wanted it to feel more like a real brake pedal. I shouldn't have to feel like I'm doing a leg press to get the thing to lock up 100%. So I made it a steeper curve to come up quicker. Other than that, save those settings. Make sure you save them properly and have it set so that it's all games or whatever you're using, or this will switch on you. I noticed that with the new one as well. Moving into Assetto Corsa, there's a few controls in here that will also play a fact with those PitHouse settings. So the first one, going into settings, Assetto Corsa controls force feedback. My gain's at 70. If you're on a 3 or a 5, I would probably bring it up to 80 to 85, not much more. Everything else can be done with force feedback in game. Curb effect is at 2. Road, I run all those at 0. I don't like the additional effects. I'm not road racing. It just throws in a bunch of weird inputs and overkills the feeling. Miscellaneous, both are unchecked. Center boost gain, 0 and 0. This is all handled in the PitHouse. Same thing with the lower speed reduction. That's handled in the PitHouse. Experimental, uncheck. Just what I'm used to. I'll typically check it, bring them down to 0, and then uncheck it. So keep those there. And then the last one is in custom shaders patch. You're going to go to force feedback wheel tweaks and uncheck allow CSP and custom soft lock. I have them all unchecked. I see a lot of people run this one on and that on to allow it. That just makes it super strong, and I couldn't get the feeling to come down and feel realistic, so I run all this off now. If you want to see what each one does, turn that on and then turn one on at a time and jump into a game. Other than that, when you jump into a lobby, go to the right side of your screen, go to force feedback controller, adjust them per game. I'm now at about 45 to 60 in game, so base those numbers off mine, and then you can go up or down from there based off what wheelbase you have. And that's all my settings for the new MOZA update. That's all you're going to need. Like I said, they work on the 3, 5, 9, or 12. They're all fine, but hopefully it helps, and appreciate you guys watching. See you next time.